80s, we travelled around Australia together. I'm a photographer, Leonard's the historian. And that's when we really noticed there were cafes and milk bars in every single town that we went through. And at that time, that was the dying age of the milk bar. And we felt that this is really significant. It had been overlooked by mainstream historians, I think. So we started documenting as much as we could. And, 20 years later, 30 years later, a lot of all of that has now gone.
Milk bars emerged previously out of institutions that Greeks had where table service was of the emphasis. But milk bars themselves did away with table service. The whole idea was to get as many customers in as possible and get them out quickly. It was open frontage. It had a concertina door on it so that the inside would spill out and it would attract people in. The inside was usually Art Deco, where you had wonderful chrome that was shining out at you. You had highly polished tile surfaces, or you had like lino on the floor, for instance. You also had in some murals which decorated the walls. And you also had a back panel of mirrors so that you could see yourself in a fantasy land that was being created for you. Milk bars were often associated with picture theatres, and that was the connection between food and fantasy that had been generated initially in the US, but Greeks brought it out here to Australia, so that you got an extension of what you saw in the picture theatre, an extension of Hollywood, into the actual milk bar itself. And indeed, with the first milk bar, that is Mick Adams's milk bar, which he opened up in 1932 in Martin Place in Sydney, he actually was directly influenced from the United States. Mick Adams was of Greek background. His Greek name was Iokim Davlaridis, and he was born in what today is northern Greece. Within 5 years of Adams opening up the black and white milk bar in Martin Place, there were 4,000 milk bars across Australia.
I mostly feel a connection with the people that ran the places. One of my favourites is probably the Bluebird at Lockhart. I took a photograph of the two brothers. They'd worked with each other for 50 years, and I photographed them in the cubicle. Soon after, I think one of them passed away and the business had to be sold. But imagine working with a sibling for 50 years, running a business like that in a small country town.
The Olympia Milk Bar is one of the last remaining milk bars in terms of being in its traditional form. It was initially established as a milk bar in 1939, and it has been run ever since with that title, Olympia Milk Bar. And it was right next to the Olympia Picture Theatre, and those two work together. Again, a symbiotic relationship. It's unique because it offers a look into the past. What you see there is essentially its 1939 outfit. The proprietor of the Olympia Milk Bar is Mr. Nicholas Fotiou. Nicholas originally operated the Olympia with his brother John. John passed away in 1981. He has remained there, and the length of time during which he's been there has generated a sense of interest.
We've been visiting the Olympia Milk Bar for a number of years now, but it wasn't until recently that I really wanted to try and get to talk to him. And so I started speaking to him in Greek, and he actually responded. And I'm actually warming to the man because he's got a bit of a sense of humour. And now I just enjoy going in there for a cup of tea and a little chat.